of your time, Dalia. But I know that Sophie and Linda were wanting to join too, so they can jump in and then listen to the recording as well.
So shall I start sharing my slides?
Yes, if you want to go for it, that'd be fantastic. And I'll just hand over to you because I know you're going to do a bit of an introduction as well. And yes, I'm so excited about this.
Ooh, okay, let me find my slides here. Get them up.
So Dalia and I met via that. We've got the same coach who coached us on how to get our business online.
Yeah. So yeah. And we thought, hey, let's connect on Skype and keep each other posted on where we are and what we're doing. And
if I type notes at the same time, is that going to be really annoying? I don't know if you can.
No, I think that's great. I think that's great.
We can just put you on mute, Soph.
Yeah, do that.
So we can't hear
me.
Let's put...
But definitely, as I'm going through, ask questions as well, because any questions you have, then others might have as they're watching the recording. So.
Okay. Lou, let me know if it sounds noisy.
Yeah.
It does sound noisy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear it. So if I put you on mute, but if you've got a question, then just unmute yourself.
Oh, can I do that? How do
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see in the little...
okay. Why don't I I'll mute my audio now, and then I'll just unmute if I need to ask a question. How about that? Okay,
cool. Fantastic. So shall I hand straight over to you, Dalia, if you're ready? And I know you're going to do a little bit of an intro about how you got started in your business, and then you're going to share your wisdom with us.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay, it should be this one.
Hurrah, that's working. I can see it.
You can see it? Oh, fantastic. So we have here. Okay. We're on, yeah? You can see my screen here?
Yep, beautiful. Looking great.
Okay, great. So we'll go ahead and get started. Just before we start, definitely as I'm going through, feel free to interrupt, ask your questions, and I'm going to also ask you for some feedback as I go along to see what your thinking is just in terms of your own life and how what I'm going to be showing you applies to you. So definitely type in whatever it is that you're thinking of, and also make sure you have a notebook out, something to take notes in, whether it's digital or analog, like a regular notebook, just so that if you think of something as it applies to your own life, you'll be able to write it down, because you're going to want to look back at that afterwards. And of course, turn off any other distractions, because we're going to be talking about distractions throughout this as well. So that way you can avoid any guilt as we're going through. When I talk about turning off distractions, they'll already be off for you. Okay. So who's this webinar for? Well, Louisa, you were kind enough to invite me on here to speak with empowered businesswomen who are creating transformations in their lives. And I was really, really excited because I'm working with ambitious professionals who I think will match this kind of personality. So I work with people with really big aspirations and who have high expectations of themselves. So they're not people who are just pleased with the status quo. They always want to upgrade the type of life that they're living. They're people who want to make sure they're creating purposeful lives and also purposeful businesses, and they do want to create a kind of work-life balance, even though that can be elusive sometimes. It is something that they're striving for. And then people who want to make sure that their efforts are being turned into results. So they're not just working for the sake of working, but they're really working smarter and not harder towards actually achieving their dreams and producing the outcome that they desire. So just before we get into it, I would like to know from everyone what your definition of time management is, because this type of definition can be really different for different people. I've been finding it very interesting when I talk to people that everyone has a different idea of what time management and productivity actually is. So if you can go ahead and let me know now what time management actually means for you.
For me, it's probably, I don't know, I feel like I don't have very good time management. So for me, I've started trying to structure my day. So making sure that in between you know, in my calendar, I've literally written in between certain hours what I'm doing, which client I'm working for, whether I'm taking the dog for a walk, whatever it is. And I see it as basically just managing your time so that you're not flapping around and stressed with you know, sort of feeling like you don't have enough time to do things.
So it sounds like for you, when you think time management, you picture your calendar and you picture the blocks in your calendar kind of thing. Okay.
And for me, I think, it's around self-management. One of the things I've taken away is it's more about, when I hear time management, I think it's about how I manage myself.
Okay, that's interesting. So when you say yourself, what exactly are you referring to?
In terms of the priorities that I set, how I want to spend my time, but it's about how rather than managing time, I'm managing myself, if that makes sense. I've realized it's more about an inward look rather than an outward look.
Okay, so do you think that refers more to your energy levels or to something else?
I think it's energy levels and the structure that I put around it, because I know that there's different times of the day that I'm good for things and not for other things.
Okay, so I guess matching your energy levels to the activity that you're going to be doing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like with jet lag now is not a good time to book calls in the morning because I want to go to sleep.
Yeah. Okay. So another definition I have for you is productivity. What does that word mean to you? This one's a little bit more difficult, maybe.
So this is one as well. I always feel like I need to be productive. So I'm always saying I need to be productive. I need to be constantly doing things to make sure I'm feeling productive. So I see it as just getting things done that are on my to-do list. So I feel like I'm not being productive if in the back of my mind I've got 10 million things to do and I'm obviously never getting to the end of that 10 million things to do list. I feel like I'm not being productive, even if I am doing productive things. So I guess I see it as not sitting around on the sofa watching telly and actually doing things that are going to help either in my business or for my clients or for just general work-life balance.
Okay. Anything else?
I think from my perspective, in terms of being productivity, what popped into my head was around not being busy, if that makes sense. Because I work with so many people that think they're being productive, but they're just being busy and they're hiding behind being busy.
Yeah.
So they're not being productive.
Yeah.
But they're very, very busy. And then exhausted. Yeah.
And then, of course, the exhaustion is kind of the result of that afterwards, right? Okay, so what's interesting about the definition of productivity is that there are kind of two sides of the definition that I've noticed when I ask people this question. So on the one hand, there are the people who are still kind of in the Industrial Revolution definition of productivity, where when I tell them that I do productivity coaching, they get really afraid of me and they tell me, well, I'm already busy enough. Don't talk to me. I don't want to get any busier with productivity coaching, which of course, I have to tell them that it's not about getting busier at all, right? And then there's the other side where they get really excited when I tell them I'm a productivity coach. But again, the excitement is not quite as well placed as it could be, because they tell me, oh, that's amazing. You have to check out this app. It's so great. Or this piece of stationery or this planner. You must try it. And this other productivity tool, you have to try this out, which again is not, when I talk about productivity, it's not so much about the latest tool or the latest app that's going to restructure your entire way of being productive, right? So just when I talk about productivity, my stance is that it's more about how you manage your priorities and how efficiently you're moving towards your goals, both professional and personal. It's not about just up-leveling your work life or just up-leveling your personal life. Your life is your life, and being productive is how you reach your life goals in all areas, how you stack those all together and create a holistic system for managing it all. Because I'm sure you can think of a time when things were going great at home, but at work you were really stressed out. And I bet it was pretty hard to stay happy and treat everyone else around you well, when you got home in the evening. And likewise, if you're if your business is going well, but in your personal, you have no personal life, then your business is also going to suffer. So it's important to look at everything holistically and not just try to get better at being productive at work or just get more time for ourselves and not worry about our businesses. So a little bit more about my personal story and how I got so obsessed with with productivity. I am an international communications consultant. I still am. I'm still working for the United Nations doing communication consultancies, but I'm also a productivity and goals consultant. So I help ambitious people to turn their efforts into results by improving their productivity systems. So here's a little bit about my story. This was me a couple of years ago. I was working for the World Health Organization in Geneva, and this was the office I was in at the time. And of course, this is one of those jobs that when you first get into it, it's really exciting. It was my goal actually to work for the World Health Organization, so I was really happy. But after a little bit of time, I felt like it was time to up-level. I wanted to do deployments to the field. I wanted to just up-level my career in terms of doing more interesting things. And also, I wanted more freedom in my personal life. So my partner was living in Barcelona. I wanted to be able to work from Barcelona if I desired, so that I didn't have to be separated in Geneva. And when I was asking around about how I could do that, the answer I kept getting was, well, you're very young. In this organization, people were, the average age was probably 30, 40 years older than me. So people were kind of saying, well, you're very young, just hang around, and maybe in 10 years, you'll get to do some more deployments. And this thing about working from home, that's really asking too much. This is just not something that they do, right? So that to me was not very satisfying. I didn't just want to bide my time and wait for these things to happen. So I eventually started to research productivity, and I researched everything. I started trying all kinds of things, various types of planners and goal setting systems and apps, and I started to really make some big shifts in terms of how I organized my goals, rather than just playing the waiting game and waiting until I was, more senior so that things would hopefully just happen for me. So what I discovered were some key productivity game changers. And these are the ones that I also coach my clients through so that they can have these working for them in their life. So there are certain mindset breakthroughs that you have to go through so that you can realize a different side of yourself that's more strategic, that can find focus, and that no matter what comes your way, you are still unstoppable. You still go forward, and you still produce on your tasks. You need to know how to create a clean slate for yourself on demand, so you're not always waiting for January 1st. I don't know if any of you are now planning New Year's resolutions and thinking that as of January 1st, your whole life is going to be perfect from now on. Well, I also love that clean slate feeling, but it's important to know how to create it on demand whenever you need it. And then I had to learn how to prioritize and manage my time, like we talked about before. So that involves knowing how to get a grip on your priorities, knowing how to create a time matrix, and then time blocking and maximizing your calendar. And then there are also habit breakthroughs to make. You need to know how to stop the habits that are not serving you, how to create the habits that will serve you, and create your daily rituals, which is a big thing. You need to learn how to focus, which is becoming an increasingly rare skill in society. So the more you can develop your focus muscle, and we'll get more into this in a bit, but the more you develop your focus muscle, the more value you're going to bring to the world, and then the more successful you're going to be in your business as well. And then increasingly, we also need to learn how to deal with technology, because technology it's becoming a bigger source of distraction than a lot of us realize, and it is impacting our productivity much more than we realize. So it's very important to use technology so that it serves you rather than disrupting you. So here was kind of a little collage of my path to date. So once I started implementing all of these productivity skills, that was where it was like a miracle. Within 1 year, everything that I had planned for myself, I had all these big goals I'd planned out into my goal setting matrix, and the goals seemed to be impossible. I mean, they conflicted with one another. On one hand, I wanted to do deployments to the field. On the other hand, I wanted to work from home. And both of these at the time were like impossible goals that people said were just not possible for me, for my age, and for the type of organization I was in. But within that year, I ended up going on various trainings, and then I was deployed to Ukraine and Angola, and then I covered various conferences, and I also ended up working from home. So it was like it all came true within 1 year. And meanwhile, I was documenting all of these travels and things that I was doing on my YouTube channel. If you want to check it out, you can. It's called Dalia's Ambitions. And then what happened was that people started asking me, oh, how do you live this way? You're so lucky, etc. And after a certain point, I just felt like it's not right that people are saying, oh, you're lucky. Anyone can do the same thing as me if they just apply the same principles and they start to structure their life in this way. So that was where I created Accelerate Your Ambitions to start coaching people through all of these shifts. And that's where I'm starting the productivity revolution. So if you will join me in this productivity revolution, then I'm really excited to have you, and excited to get more of us working smarter and not harder so that we can start serving the world better and also serving ourselves better and living better lives, growing better businesses. So really excited to have you here and to show you some of these principles. So does any of this sound like you? Does anyone ever find themselves overwhelmed and anxious?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, okay. How about work-life balance? Do you feel like you have an okay work-life balance?
I didn't used to. That's why I quit to sort of do what I do, because I just didn't have one at all. It was just work constantly in London. And even when I was outside of work, I was just on my work phone working anyway. So I do feel like I've got a better work-life balance now that I'm a VA. But I'm still struggling to sort of really know when to sort of switch off from work, when to do, trying to find that distinction and not constantly I feel like I'm constantly coming back to work and not really structuring my time well to do it in the times that I should be doing it, really. Yeah, and
that's the downside, right, of working from home sometimes, that at what point is work over?
Yeah.
So it's really, if you work from home, it's amazing, but of course it's even more important to have some of these structures in place to make sure you're having your own time.
Definitely. And the pitfalls that you were talking about of technology and the distractions there, that's a big one. I hate, if I'm feeling a bit tired or a bit sluggish and I've done a bit of work, and then I'll say, I'll just check Facebook for 5 minutes, and it ends up being sort of half an hour. I hate that, and then I get really angry at myself. I'm like, and I close it, but you end up coming back to it again another time.
Yeah, we're going to follow up on that in a bit. So if you have more questions about that, make sure you ask me when we get into those, because that is a really, really big one. And I have a lot of strategies to deal with. I think it's really important to take some clear strategies for those technological distractions. Otherwise, we're just fighting something that we can't fight.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And what about overcommitment? Any overcommitment issues where you like to say yes to everything?
Yeah, I say yes to everything. Yeah, I that was always my problem. I say no a little bit more now, but I think it's now that I'm freelancing, it's more important to learn how to say no more, because I think, I've had a couple of people approach me saying, I could really do with a VA. I need someone to answer my calls whenever the calls come in, and I don't want to do that because I've got several clients and I don't want to be picking up the phone all day every day. And I've said yes to a couple of people like that, and I'm regretting it now. So I do say, I like to please people a lot, so I do say yes a lot.
Yeah, and sometimes it seems like everything's a great opportunity, right? So how do you choose between all these great opportunities? But yeah. Okay.
I agree. I have those as well. Despite everything that I know and learn, I know that this is something I can always improve on. And a lot of people I talk to feel overwhelmed and anxious, and particularly, of course, when they're taking on something new. When I'm coaching people through often leaving the possibility of leaving a job and then going on to start up a new business, that feeling of overwhelm as you're making that transition can, if people haven't got the right support in place and the right structure in place, can take them out of the game.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of the people I work with, they have those types of problems, and sometimes they have this feeling that deep down they just don't have everything together, like they're just winging it on a day-to-day basis and living life a bit like a firefighter. Whatever comes in, they just do it, and they're very busy, but there's something lacking at a fundamental level in terms of how everything is being organized. And then I've even had clients that say they have this feeling that time is just passing them by, and the days and months are, and even years sometimes, are just becoming one big blur, and they don't actually know what happened in all that time. And they get to the point where if they don't start structuring themselves better and they don't make some kind of a change, then they could find themselves on their deathbed without really having made the key memories in their life that matter. So that's why it's so important to take control of our time. So this is what I like to call the productivity trap. And what I've noticed is that a lot of ambitious people are caught up in this trap, and that they're believing a lie. And this is the lie that I really want to debunk and make sure that no one is believing anymore. And the lie is thinking that ambitious means you need to work hard, do a lot, and have no time and no energy. So this is the problem with us ambitious people that expect a lot of ourselves. We just think that we need to be busy all the time, and that it's normal to have no energy because we're so busy. But it's just a trap, because it doesn't mean that you're necessarily being productive, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're achieving as much as you could be achieving, especially with that ambitious personality. So in the next about 45 minutes, we're going to go through the 5 secrets of time management, even if you're one of these people who feel like you need actually 48 hours or even more in a day to do everything that you need to get done. And then the critical shift you need to make that's going to allow you to start making time more abundant, and how to free up time for your goals, personal and business goals, without neglecting other obligations that you currently have on your plate, and how to stop sacrificing your goals for busy work. And then I want to make sure that I give you something really concrete to take home today, so it's not all theory. And we're going to be working on how we can all free up at least 1 hour of time starting today. So why take control of your time? I'm sure you have lots of good reasons for it, but just to put things into perspective, 1 extra hour per day is 365 hours per year, or 45 8-hour work days. So what would you do if you had 45 extra work-free days?
Wow.
Yeah, I've read that.
I think
before.
I would go, I would have been in Hawaii, I think, that whole time.
Yeah, I'm going back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I say that to a few people. I never take it on board myself. I always say people that are stuck in a rut and haven't, got out of their current job, and I tell them that they need to. I say, if you just put 1 hour a day towards this, that's 7 hours a week, and I sort of do that, but I never do it myself, so I'm just being a massive hypocrite, really. But I think I probably use it to sort of either work towards sorting my business out a bit more, so working on all the accounts and marketing and that kind of stuff, which I don't really do at the moment, and also on teaching myself new things, so doing some online courses, things like that, or going on holiday. That would be good.
Yeah. Okay, nice. So another reason to take control of your time is that your actions are like investments. So a lot of us are familiar with the compound effect when it comes to money, and we know that it's much better to invest a small amount of money throughout your life to get that compound effect, rather than starting to save when you're older and you're already close to retirement, right? But what a lot of people don't know is that time and your actions function the same way in relation to time, which means that just putting an hour aside for something every day, or a small amount of time, or taking small but concrete actions in a certain direction on a regular basis will add up over time, and you'll be able to take advantage of this compound effect with your actions and for your goals as well. And that is how you can achieve really, really huge goals with just small regular actions. So a good example of this is to look at this graph, which is from Warren Buffett, where you can see that thanks to the compound effect, look at the, this is his financial wealth. You can see how the compound effect worked for him. But if you start thinking about this effect in terms of your own actions, what could you achieve if every little action you took today had this effect on it over time, and it was multiplied like this? Then you can start to see the kinds of goals that you can achieve, which now are totally, totally impossible. And that is why the time to take control of your time is right now and not later. Because when I talk to people and I talk to them about productivity and time management, a lot of them will tell me, well, maybe I'll be ready to think about this in 6 months' time, or in 1 year's time, or once I complete this, or once I do that. But you need to start right now, or you're not going to be able to take advantage of the compound effect. So also related to the compound effect is the Kaizen principle, which you might have heard of. So this is a Japanese word, which basically means that you make small incremental changes, but they lead to a big effect. So a good example of a company that uses this is Toyota, which I believe is now the 13th biggest company in the world. And what Toyota does is that it rewards employees for making small changes. So anytime they see a little inefficiency, even if it doesn't seem like a big deal, if there's something inefficient, they are rewarded for taking a step to fix it. So rather than just say, you know what, it's a small inefficiency, I'll just keep working, they can take a bit of time out, fix it, and continue. And with all the employees employing this effect, all of the outcome is that it's grown to be such a huge company, and it's grown to be so successful. So it is important to think about these little incremental actions and structures in your life. So my promise to you by the end of this webinar is that you will have this step-by-step strategy to become very efficient with your time. And like I said before, we're going to start with getting back 1 hour today, but you should be able to get back even more than that if you wish. So these steps are going to be what helps you to change your relationship with time so that you can start moving towards your goals much faster. And here's what I'm seeing among professionals right now. So many of them are taking business or productivity related courses, but they're still struggling to maintain momentum. So they have a lot of information, but not necessarily transformation. And I see a lot of people who are sharing listicles and TED Talks and productivity apps and stationery, like I mentioned before, and also news articles. And I see them and they have all this incredible ambition, but they're just not employing the strategies that are really going to be helping them to turn their efforts into results as efficiently as they could be. So for them, like I said before, work ethic means they're struggling. So when they see someone who's having it too easy and enjoying their life too much, maybe they think, okay, well, that person is not really achieving anything. And for them, they're kind of struggling on a day-to-day basis. And meanwhile, nothing is really solving their overwhelm or bringing them much closer to their goals. So maybe you can relate to some of this. And if so, the real problem is that there are still some important shifts that you need to make. So that is why we're going to look at them. And so you can start employing them right away, starting today. And then once you've made the shifts, you'll get more clarity on how to create times for the things that are actually important to you. Again, whether that is important shifts you need to make in your business or in your lifestyle. You'll get a lot more confidence as well in how you structure your day, so you can stop feeling guilty about all of the stuff that you're not doing. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling that you're working on something, but meanwhile, there's all this background guilt about everything else that you're not doing. And then you can start mastering the routines that will help you to work more focused and working smarter and not harder. And that way you can create the liberated, no stress, freedom lifestyle that I think most of us are all after. So let's go ahead and start discovering the 5 shifts. And just before we do, here is why I chose these 5 shifts. So I have been speaking to a lot of very ambitious people, and some of them were indeed enjoying their life and also functioning at quite a high level in terms of success. But other ones always seem to be struggling and kind of down or having motivation issues. But the ones who were enjoying their lives and also achieving more were always doing these 5 things. And it didn't matter what their profession was or what their individual lifestyle goals were. So again, these are the shifts that I made, which were what helped me from feeling rather anxious, kind of stuck at that desk job. And I have to admit, I was also not working as efficiently as possible. I mean, I was up until 3 a.m. sometimes, just doing some emails, working on various things I needed to do. And I was constantly feeling anxious and overwhelmed. And then now I feel like I work way less hours on things, like things that used to take me a week to complete, I can do it within a couple of hours. And I just feel so much less overwhelmed. And I feel like my goals they take shape much, much faster. And I have more control over achieving them compared to before. So that means that the 5 shifts are going to work for you too. So shift number 1 is to know your why. So before we try to get back more time, it's really important to ask ourselves what we want the time for. So why do you think you want more time? I think you mentioned a few things before.
Yeah, so I want more time because I want more time just to do things for me. So I want to make sure I'm making money doing my business thing. So I'm sort of trying to push everything into that at the moment, but to make sure I've got, the house is in a good state, that I've got time to see my friends and family. I've got time to go away on holiday. Think just things that actually will make me feel happier, but while still maintaining a lot of, I'm doing a lot of work at the same time. But feeling on top of my personal life would be good, I think.
Okay. So for you, it's more the personal side rather than the work side?
I think so, because I think at the moment I do everything. I do need to find more time for the work side, because there's some stuff that I feel like I have a big to-do list and I push a lot of things to the bottom. So trying to get through that quicker would definitely be good, because I think that eats into my personal time where I'm trying to do more and more on the business side.
Okay.
Same.
Same. So more on the personal side. Okay.
So yeah, for me, it's always been about working smarter, not harder.
Yep.
And I'm always looking to find ways that I can do that and systemize things so that I don't have to kind of keep redoing things over and over again.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
On the work side, I really need to try and make sure I find time for my business, because I do so much for my clients. I'm not really putting time into my own business. So that's
interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's a really good one. So now that you have an idea why you want more time, we need to ask why again. So quick quote from one of my favorite philosophers, Nietzsche. He says, "He who has a why can endure anyhow," which means that if you really know your why, then whatever the method to get there, the why is what's going to support you through the journey. So you've already mentioned you think you know your whys. If you don't know your why, then just really focus on that 1 extra hour. So concretely, in the 1 extra hour you're going to open up today, what are you going to do in that hour? And then what you need to keep asking yourself is, why is that your why? So you mentioned that, for example, you want to have more time for your personal life. Well, why is that? Why not just work on your business 24/7? Why do you want more time for your personal life?
I think because that's the bit that makes me happy. And I get really stressed out when I'm constantly doing work and not having the relaxed time. So I feel, I know it's bad, but I feel guilty if I haven't spent enough time with people, or I haven't made the effort to speak to people that I feel like I should be speaking to more. I want to speak to them, I just haven't found the time or made the time to do it. So yeah, I know it's not the right way to think about it, but I want to do it, and I feel guilty that I'm not doing that.
Okay, so what's interesting about that is that you are noticing that when you take the time for your personal life, whether it's talking to friends, you have various things that you would prioritize then within your personal life. But doing those things makes you feel happier. And you also just mentioned that when you don't do those things, you start feeling guilty and stressed. And if you feel guilty and stressed, what kind of effect do you think that has on your work as well? Because guilt and stress are not really the best motivators for getting work done either.
Yeah,
so
it's counterproductive.
So it's just interesting to think about how putting maybe a bit of time aside for your personal life can have beneficial effects on your work.
Yeah.
So now what you need to do is make sure you write down the core reason. So if you say you want to prioritize getting in touch with your friends, then write down, why is that? Well, I feel happier. Well, I want to help others. Well, it'll also be beneficial for my work because I'll be less stressed and I'll be happier during my work day because I know I'm living in a balanced way. So whatever your deeper core reasons are, that would be important to write down as well. And again, why keep asking why like this? Because some of you might be saying, I already told you why. Why do I need to keep asking? Sometimes you need to ask yourself why 5 times before you really get to the core reason. But the reason is that it becomes the core driver and the motivator that will underlie the change. And as Simon Sinek says, what you do simply proves what you believe. So that's why it's so important to examine our beliefs and examine the why below why we don't have time. And that's why you often see people who, you'll have someone who's very fit and healthy, and other people will tell them, that's so good of you to stay fit like this. And then the fit person will tell them, well, why don't you do the same thing? I mean, come for a run with me tomorrow. And they'll say, no, I don't have the time. But people who really know how to manage their time will never say, I don't have the time. And I just realized this the other day, that I no longer say I don't have time. I used to say that all the time. And now I didn't even realize it, but I would never say I don't have time anymore, because I think of time in a totally different way. Now I would say, I would love to, but that's not my priority right now. So here are just a few examples of the whys that I used to have. As I mentioned before, I really wanted to move to Barcelona. I wanted to have a more active lifestyle as well. And then I wanted to go on these deployments, spend more time with friends, have more time for travels, cover some conferences. So those were sort of my whys, and the things that I then worked on to have come true in my life and make sure I had time for them. And here are some more examples of what the whys might be for you. Maybe you want to spend more time with your children. Maybe you want to try something new that you've never tried before, like surfing. Actually, that was one that I had on my list for a while. I'm going to go to the Canary Islands soon to hopefully not kill myself surfing, but hopefully it'll be an interesting experience. Some people have long lost hobbies, or they used to do art and they just kind of stopped doing them because they think they don't have time for it anymore. But if that brought you pleasure and that was something that you think will enhance your life, then maybe that's something you want to dedicate your 1 hour of time to. So just a couple of ideas to get you going, and make sure you write down for you, what do you want to use your extra time for? And specifically the 1 extra hour today that we're going to get back. And make sure you realize that productivity isn't a goal, it's a lifestyle. So it's like when we talk about weight loss and everyone says, well, weight loss is a lifestyle, not a goal in and of itself. That you need to be living the healthy lifestyle and not just trying to lose weight. And it's the same thing with productivity. And that's why productivity is not just about finding the right app or finding the right agenda or anything like that. It's really about learning how to live the lifestyle. So do you see how this is going to underpin and empower your time management actions and your decisions on a day-to-day basis, and start changing your relationship with time so that you just naturally no longer say things like, oh, I don't have time, or I'm really busy, or anything like that. For you, it just becomes prioritization and just the way that you organize yourself. So shift number 2, we're going to start mapping your time. So this is where we were talking about the calendars and the time blocking. We're going to decide where an extra hour of time is going to go today by dedicating a time slot to it. Because what isn't scheduled doesn't happen. And I have no idea who first said that, but I think we've all heard it many times. If it's not on your calendar, you're probably not going to do it. So you might need to get creative when choosing your time slot, especially if you're one of these people who says that you're really, really busy and there isn't a single spot in the day where you can fit anything in. But a good one is if you have a commute, the average commuting time, I don't have the stats for UK or for other places in the world, but for Americans, the commuting time is about 25 minutes every day, which is an hour every day. So you could be listening to a podcast, you could be reading a book if you take public transport. I used to spend a lot of time on the tube and I would read, so make sure you're utilizing your commute if you have one. If you bike to, or if you don't exercise and you're trying to fit exercise in, maybe your time slot is just to start biking to work to get your exercise. A lot of people who want to become more productive and want to fit something in actually start with their morning. Morning is one of the easiest times to fit your time slot in because there's nothing else disrupting you. So a lot of people I work with who say they have no time currently hit their snooze button multiple times before they actually get out of bed. So imagine how much time you can save by not hitting your snooze button. And just another side note about the snooze button is that also makes you start your day in procrastination mode. So as soon as you hit that snooze button, you're now not actually sleeping probably in 100%. So you're sort of dozing off, but not really not getting productive sleep time. And meanwhile, you're already starting the day feeling a little bit guilty and starting the day in this kind of procrastination mindset because you're going, will I press snooze again or will I not? I'm not sure. And you're already depleting your decision-making muscle by deciding about whether or not to hit the snooze button. And it's just not the most productive way to start your morning. The other time slot is your lunch break. So I remember when I was working in Geneva in the office, I started going for runs with some colleagues. And again, there were a lot of people working in the same office who, for them, going for a run on their lunch break was like a ridiculous idea, because then they had all kinds of excuses. They'd have to bring their gym clothes to work and take a shower. That just seems like way too much hassle. But of course, once you just start doing it, it's no big deal at all. And it's great to be able to have a proper break at lunch, to actually go outside, talk to some colleagues, and the bringing your gym clothes to work and have a shower there was no big deal at all. But, you know, we create all of these ideas in our mind, but things are just too difficult until we actually try them. So think about if you could use your lunch break or another time of day. Just get creative, and you might need to choose a time of day that currently you don't consider using. Or there's always your evenings. So a lot of us are not that productive in the evening. And again, when I say productive, I'm not always talking about producing something, but anything that's moving you closer to your goal. So a lot of people will say, yeah, but in the evenings I have no energy. Well, that's fine. But then why don't you just go to bed earlier, and then you'll get to have your morning time slot back. So go ahead and schedule it right now. And I'd love to know, what time slot have you chosen for your hour?
So choosing, I need to get my calendar up. Hang on. Oh, where's it gone? Am I still on the call?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I can't see you anymore.
We can see you.
Oh gosh, where's everyone gone? Hang on.
If you hit the Zoom app, you might find us again.
I'm in Zoom. I can see Zoom, but it looks like I've finished. How weird. Anyway, let me find my time slot. I think I'll probably do it maybe in between, early evening, before dinner, maybe between 6 and 7. That'll be my time slot.
Okay, nice.
Mine's in the morning.
Great. And what are you going to do during that time?
Who, me? I'm going to do my yoga.
Oh, very nice.
And I'm just trying to find you again. And then I am going to do some house tidying.
Okay. Make sure you have your whys behind those. So why are you going to do the yoga, and why are you going to do house tidying? What's that really going to give you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So just as an example, my client, Chris, she had a very, very busy time. She was very anxious. She was trying to finish up with her degree. She was trying to get funding for the NGO that she leads. And meanwhile, she was living in a different country, and she had kind of stress related to that and related to not knowing where she wanted to go next, plus a long distance relationship, which is also always an additional source of stress. But working with me, she scheduled back in her morning ritual to make sure she got the stress under control first thing. And for her, that meant doing a hike up this mountain that you can see in the background in her picture. And every morning seeing the sunrise from there, and then doing a bit of meditation. And that for her was her anchor, so that she would be able to succeed in everything else she needed to deal with at that time. Her exams, getting the funding, as I mentioned before, and the long distance relationship. So that was what kind of kept everything together for her. And she put her time slot at 5 a.m. And to her, that was really worthwhile, because it's what helped her succeed in everything else she needed to do. So this kind of idea of mapping your time and backing it up with the why, this is what's going to transform your calendar into your own blank canvas. So you can really map out a life that's in line with your goals, rather than just keeping busy and the hours going by doing whatever it is that you're doing. So now is the best part. Now that we've decided why we want more time and where we're going to have that time, now we're going to actually get that time back, right? Because some of you might still be saying, well, that's very nice, but I still have the same amount of stuff to do. How am I going to fit in an additional hour? So shift number 3 is learn to focus. So focus is actually becoming a long lost, extinct skill in our society. And as Cal Newport says, one of the most valuable skills in our economy is becoming increasingly rare. And if you master the skill, you'll achieve extraordinary results. And of course, he is referring to the skill of focus. So the flow state, or it's also called hyperfocus, is actually a state that's been recognized for thousands of years. So this is nothing new. It's just that these days it's becoming an increasingly important thing, and something that's increasingly rare because people are starting to lose this type of state. And getting into the state of flow or deep work will allow you to start delivering more value to the world. You're going to avoid becoming replaceable. Maybe some of you have been reading about how robots are going to take over all our jobs. Well, that is a real fear for a lot of people. But whether it's a robot that takes your job or your work away, or another person, deep work is what's going to help you to become irreplaceable. You'll also get to complete projects faster. Like I mentioned before, there were things that used to stress me out and take me a week to do that now I can do within maybe 2 hours because I'm in this deep work state. And the best part about deep work is that it helps you to actually enjoy working. So back in the day, before I started with all these strategies, I was getting my work done. But the fact is, when I sat down at my desk in the morning, I had this kind of feeling of dread. And sometimes when I would get emails, I would really dread reading them. And then once I read them, I would dread answering them. And it was like everything was this big struggle. But once I started getting into the state of deep work and making sure that when I worked, it was almost only deep work, that was where I started actually enjoying getting to my desk, and I would enjoy working. And I think that is something that's totally priceless, to actually feel excited to sit down and get to work. So you need to ask yourself, what if I focused on the work that really matters? Then what would those deliverables be? And what if you eliminated, automated, or delegated the busy work? So what are the really big deliverables that in your life make a difference?
You're probably better to go first, Lou.
Okay. So for me, in terms of what I need to do is, for my business, is obviously having discovery calls. That's a deliverable for, that's where I add value and will help people come up with a plan about the best for them in terms of making some big shifts in their life. And then if they, through the conversation, if I think they're potentially an ideal client, I'll invite them to work with me. So that's definitely something that is focused work for me. Obviously, as I expand and grow, I will be able to bring in some sales coaches as well to help with those breakthrough calls at that point. In terms of deliverables as well, as obviously creating content for my programs and doing the research behind that to make sure I'm always up to date. And because I think, you'll recognize this, Dalia, as coaches, I think that's one of the things that is on us, is for our personal development to be right up there. We have a duty to make sure our energy, our mindset's completely in alignment so that we're delivering our best. So we have some behind the scenes work that we need to do to then put all of that into the work that we produce for our clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think for me it's hard because I feel like I'm the person that everyone delegates to, so I don't really know if I can delegate anything. I can't really delegate anything.
That's an interesting one. Yeah.
I mean, it's not what I want to do forever, but it was a really good step for me to move out of my crazy London life. But I don't know, really. My deliverables are obviously just doing the work that my clients want me to do, but in a timely manner, and making sure that I'm not procrastinating over doing it and not pushing certain things back that I should be doing sooner. And for me, actually, it's what would be really key is I flip between my clients rather than structuring my time to do, like you say, this deep work when I don't really know too much about it. But I'm guessing rather than say doing 1 hour of really focused work on that client, I sort of maybe go backwards and forwards between a couple of them because there's urgent things that come up. Actually, I shouldn't really do that. So I don't know, it's tricky for me, really.
But that's where you might be able to rethink a little bit the system, maybe even in terms of how you work with those clients, where from what hour to what hour urgent things are going to come in, and then where you can really do that focused work.
Yeah.
But we're going to get a little bit more into distractions in a second. So see if you can eliminate, automate, or delegate any of your current non-focused work.
Yeah.
So by learning how to focus, this will improve the quality of our work, and that's what's going to really bring much more value to your projects and to your own lifestyle dreams, but also will help you to serve the world at a much higher level. So a quick recap of where we are so far. We now understand our why behind getting back more time. We've mapped the time slots onto our calendars, and we've learned how to work with full focus in whatever it is that we are doing, not just during that 1 hour, but throughout our day so that we free up additional time. So now we're going to learn how to eliminate distractions. And I think throughout the time we've had together already, we keep touching on distractions over and over again. So this is a really, really big one. So as the Roman poet Horace says, rule your mind or it will rule you. So the problem is that our brains are wired to love distraction, which means every time you get distracted, it takes about 25 minutes to get focused again, which is actually a huge, huge waste of time. And seemingly small distractions can be much bigger time wasters than you realize. So this is why we need to take some strong strategies against distractions. A lot of people will say, oh yeah, I probably should check my phone less often, or yeah, it can be distracting, having Facebook on sometimes. But I think people don't realize the true, just how big of a problem this really is. So we need to take these strategies seriously. We need to think about creating gadget-free zones, use noise-canceling headphones if you have too much noise around you or distracting people around you. You should definitely keep your social media tabs closed and make sure all of your notifications are turned off while you're working. You shouldn't constantly be getting notifications in, because even if you think that you're just glancing over and ignoring it, it's distracting your brain. So another thing you can do is when you're having one of your focus blocks of work, you can utilize your phone's airplane mode. You can also use Pomodoro timers. I don't know if you've heard of those, but they are great. It just means that you set a timer. You have some specific apps. Like I use one called Focus Keeper, which is really nice, but there's all kinds of apps for this. Basically, they just time 25 minutes or whatever amount of time you set for yourself, and then you just stay very focused for that time, and then you take a break, and then you come back. So you can try that. You can try changing your location if you're just feeling like there's too many distractions around you. Make sure you work in a space that is not full of clutter, and don't use distractions as rewards. So going on Facebook in between your focus blocks is not the very best kind of break for yourself. Preferably, you should do something that is not on a screen. So my client Maya had tried lots of productivity strategies in the past, but she still felt very distracted and very out of balance. And at the time, she was looking for a new job. And after our work together, she ended up closing the gap between what she'd already tried, because she tried a lot of different techniques, and where she wanted to go by learning to avoid what I call shiny object syndrome. So this was how she managed to cut out the distractions, cut out the procrastination, and then she was back in a focused, empowered state, and she did the few things that were really going to bring her towards her goal of getting a job, which was to go ahead and contact recruiters and her contacts directly rather than getting distracted with all kinds of other stuff. And she ended up landing 2 interviews and got 2 job offers the very next day. And now she's already working in her dream job. So ask yourself, what is the one biggest distraction that you could cut out of your life right now?
Facebook, Instagram, definitely social media for me, or just watching rubbish on TV. So like in the evenings, if I feel like I've had a really long day, I'll just sit down and watch Friends episodes that I've watched hundreds of times. Or reality TV, stuff it doesn't mean anything to me. It's just there because I want to just veg out almost, which is stupid. They're my 2 biggest ones probably, and my dog, but that's probably gonna hang around. I can live with that one.
Yeah. And Sophie's got a hedgehog.
I do have a hedgehog as well.
Really? I didn't know you could have hedgehogs as pets.
Yeah, she's an African pygmy hedgehog. She's cute.
I've been so proud of that.
I think that the key with social media, because some people are kind of purists where they say you should have no social media accounts and social media is evil and just close everything down. I get a lot of benefit from social media. I use it for various things, and I when you're living an international lifestyle, it's amazing to keep in touch with different people. But I think the key, like for everything, is to know your why behind it. Why am I on social media? What am I doing with it? What's the purpose? And then you just set yourself aside a time for social media every day. So you know that you have half an hour to go through your messages, to check what's happening, and you know your desired outcome from being on social media. You don't need to have notifications coming in throughout the entire day. So speaking of all these technological distractions, there is one very important one that is important to address, which is managing your email. So I think social media, there's general agreement that it's like a guilty pleasure. We don't, we probably don't need to have those notifications all the time. But email is a difficult one for a lot of people, because a lot of people feel like email is work related. And so you need to be notified of everything happening as it happens. So that's why it's so important to have a clear system for how you manage your email. Otherwise, your inbox is going to start stressing you out. It's going to start disorienting you, and it will totally kill your ability to control your time and to be focused. So you want to cut the addiction to email app notifications as well as social media distractions like we discussed. And you want to also stop relying on email as your to-do list. Do any of you use your email, like open your inbox to see what you have to do that day?
I don't anymore. What I do, if there's an email that's going to require a chunk of time, I will schedule it in as to when I'm going to do it.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, I think for me it's trickier as well, actually, because I manage other people's inboxes now rather than managing my own so much. So where I worked before, it was constantly emails, ping, 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 ping. Mm-hmm. Now I still work for them and another company that I'm managing their inboxes, and I feel a sort of compelling urge to like check the emails constantly for them, because I feel like I'm doing it on their behalf. Whereas mine isn't so much anymore. I get stuff for mine, but I do get notifications for them, but it's no way near as busy as other people's, because I'm managing their business rather than working for them, if you see what I mean. Yeah. So that's a tricky one for me, really.
So I think the key there is to know how quickly they're going to need you to be aware of what's in their inbox. So is it part of your job that the very second the email comes in, you need to know about it and react to it? Or is there a 1 hour window or a 2 hour window? What is the window within which they want you to have dealt with it?
Yeah, well, they've given me, I have a certain amount of hours that I need to do a week for them. But so I guess I could say, well, between this time and this time, I'm doing your emails for this client, and then for the other client, I'm only going to check my emails in between 9 and 10 and 2 and 3. And they can just call me if it's super urgent, I guess. Because some stuff is super urgent and I feel like I need to be on it, and they expect me to be, but they will just send me a message, they'll send me a text or give me a call if I haven't.
Yeah, I think that would be the best strategy for you, because sometimes we have these ideas that everything is urgent and that we need to be aware of it right away. But really, the actual number of urgencies is very low. The urgency is more in our mind that, something is going to come through. What if something comes through? Mm-hmm. Whereas, it's kind of rare that something actually urgent comes. And if it does, then we should let people know, if it's urgent, phone me, right?
Yeah.
So that's why instead it's better to assign a time of day, or if you're someone who needs to check multiple inboxes for different people, or you're someone who really is afraid of the urgencies, it could be multiple times a day. It could even be every hour, but at least then you're getting back those 1 hours for that 1 hour in between for focused work, right? And then I would also encourage you not to check your email very first thing in the morning. Try to do your morning ritual before you check your inbox. So go ahead and turn off all of your email notifications right now. And I bet no one turned off their email notifications, because I know it's a very scary thing for most people to do.
I have 3 phones with email.
Mine are already off.
And I have like 5 different email accounts for me and everything else. I will do though.
I have all my notifications off. I have done for a number of years, actually.
Hey, fantastic. Well done.
I don't even have them on my messages, text messages, nothing. Everything's off. Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. Some people actually delete the email app from their phone completely.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. But that's tough. I mean, it depends on your lifestyle. I'm not going to tell everyone to go delete their email apps and then they're traveling and they really need to get an email. They don't have Wi-Fi, download the app again, So it really depends on the individual. It's an individual basis. The important thing is that you're thinking about this and you're really realizing, is this email urgency real, or is this just something that's in my mind that I think I have to constantly be aware of what's happening? So why we turn off email notifications, it's going to eliminate a lot of background stress that you don't need in your life, because, you know, even if nothing important comes in, you still get these notifications and you're still checking it, you're still interrupting yourself. And it also eliminates a false sense of productivity. When you're getting emails all the time and they're coming up, you're not necessarily answering them right away, but you're seeing them, you're going to feel busy and productive, even if you're not really producing anything of true value. So it's important to make sure we're not feeling productive when we're not really being productive. So you want to decide how many times per day you really need to check email, when you'll check it, and again, try to turn off your email notifications. Okay, and once you eliminate distractions, it'll be much easier to find your focus for your goals, and then you can start to be unstoppable. Shift number 5 is do not try this alone. So I want to encourage you to delegate, to communicate, collaborate, and also to get mentorship. So when we talk about delegation, I know we talked about how a VA has trouble delegating to another VA, but if you don't have a VA and you're a business owner, there's no reason not to have a VA. You should not be doing these kinds of tasks that don't require your own brain. Delegate it to a virtual assistant. I've had one for a couple of years now, and it's amazing and really fun to work together. But delegation is not just to an assistant. Sometimes it could be your spouse. Like, it's not always someone. Some people think that delegation means you have to be at a level above that person or something like this. That's not what delegation is. Delegation means you're giving it to someone who's better placed to do that job. So it could be someone with more time than you. It could be your spouse. Maybe they're located somewhere closer to the errand that needs to get done, or they're just have less on their plate right now than you do. It could be getting your kids to help out more with chores. It could be hiring someone to clean for you, because it's not really the best use of your time. If you're a business owner, you know, you shouldn't really be spending any time doing groceries even. Like, take advantage of Amazon Prime or whatever grocery delivery service. You shouldn't be puttering around the grocery store buying stuff. There's automation services for this now. So delegation can be broader than you might think. Think a bit creatively and really see what could be delegated, if it not eliminated, because a lot of stuff can actually be eliminated, don't forget. But if you cannot eliminate it, then at least delegate it. The next thing is to start communicating more. So often I have a lot of clients who tell me, well, I have all these things to do, but, you know, some of it is not on my plate because I've done what I can. Now I had to ship it off to someone else. I'm waiting for their answer. So there's nothing I can do. And that's where I say, have you tried communicating with them? Maybe they don't realize how urgent this is. Maybe something is not clear for them, so they're procrastinating on it, right? Some of us only take charge of our own productivity, and then we forget that occasionally quite often actually, we need to also manage the other people we're working with. So you need to learn the communication skills necessary to communicate with others and sometimes to shift their productivity so that it works for you as well. And then the other thing is to collaborate, to get accountability partners, get involved in groups, get involved in having other people who hold you accountable to your deadlines, to your goals, to your dreams, and have people who are sharing the same kind of path with you. For example, how I've been talking to Louisa about our coaching businesses, about where we're going in our lives and in our transformations. You know, collaborate with like-minded people, because they're going to give you more motivation and they're going to give you a lot of help along the way. And then finally, get mentorship, which I know you're doing with Louisa, because this is the way that high-performance athletes, coaches, politicians, and these million-dollar business owners have reached their levels of success. They've all, pretty much everyone I've heard of, has invested in a mentor, and they don't invest in the mentor once they're already millionaires or once they're already Olympic gold medalists. They invest much way before that to get the system, to get the accountability, to get the help that they need. So that's why I invest in mentoring consistently, and I know Louisa does, and that's why it's great that you're doing this as well. And because I know you're working with Louisa, so I know you already understand the value of mentorship. This is one of my clients, Sarah, who invested in mentoring with me, and that was what gave her the motivation and the push she needed, not only for her career but also her personal life. So she was kind of feeling stuck in her job in London. She was working as a journalist for Reuters, and she had a nice job and she was proud of herself for getting it. It's not an easy job to get, but she did want some life and career growth. So what happened is that she was thinking about possibly moving to Hong Kong, but of course she had a lot of worries related to that because she didn't know where she was going to live. She didn't know if she would find a job and end up just spending all of her savings, and she didn't know if she would meet a group of friends there. So through coaching with me, we created a plan for her move. We structured everything. And then it was pretty amazing. Within a week, she had an apartment. She had 2 jobs with CNN and Reuters, and she had a group of friends. And then her problems were upgraded to the point that she was then complaining that she didn't have enough time. She was getting too many offers of shifts, and she didn't have enough time to hang out with all of these great people she just met. So I said, well, this is a great problem to have, because it's totally the opposite of the fears you had in the beginning. And now we can work again on your time matrix to balance out the personal with all of these career opportunities you now have. So again, mentoring can bring you new ideas, confidence and accountability, and then the exact strategies that you need to reach your goals. And it can help keep you on the straight line, keep you out of overwhelm, doubt, and fear. And of course, it's fun. It gives you an ally in reaching your goals. So you get that clarity, you get perspective, accountability. And some of you may not know how many successful people actually had mentors backing them. There's Nelson Mandela, even Mother Teresa, Steve Jobs, Margaret Thatcher, and Oprah. So that's why it's important to let go of your ego, both when it comes to mentorship, but also when it comes to delegation and realizing we don't have to do everything on our own. The people around us are there to help us, just like we're there to help them, right? If you would be happy to help someone with something, then don't be afraid to also reach out and ask them for help. We're all in this life together, and productivity is not just a personal journey. So there you go. You have all the 5 shifts. Know your why, map your time, learn to focus, eliminate distractions, and do not try to go at restructuring your life like this all by yourself. So have any of you been waiting, to feel like ready to take back your time? I want you to imagine waking up every day feeling like you're excited to take action on your goals, and that you're living the life of your dreams, and that you're not just running against the clock. So as I said before, I really started with reaching goals quite ad hoc. So I was reaching big things, but because I'm one of these ambitious people, like I think you are, I was capable of achieving a lot more if I had the plan of action. So it took me a couple of years to really end up where I wanted to be. And now that I'm there, I'm just up-leveling my goals into something even bigger. And I just have more and more freedom to achieve what I want. So I want you to write down now, what would you create if you had more time and freedom? What would your business look like, or your career? What are the big things that are important to you that you've incorporated? How would your social life or your family life look? And how would you feel? What would be the main driver to keep you going? Any ideas for that?
What would I create? If I had more time and freedom, I would definitely exercise more, cook healthier food, spend more time with family and friends, go on holiday. Career-wise, I don't know, I'm a bit stuck on my career and what I want to do, but I have a few ideas, but I haven't quite refined that one yet.
Okay, but it's a start.
Yeah, and then what's important to me? I mean, social and family life would be definitely balanced. So being able to do, not feeling like I don't have enough energy to do the things that I want to do, being able to see my family, friends, would be really important to me, I think. And what drives me to keep me going, really. I like helping people. I like sort of supporting everyone around me, and I'd love to rescue loads of dogs and help I'd love to volunteer. I'd love to have time, and it sounds silly to volunteer. I've been looking at lots of volunteering opportunities, but I don't feel like I'm in the right place to be able to do that yet, because I don't feel like I have enough time, but I obviously do. I just need to find the time, really, and structure it better.
Hey, these are great.
It links so well, Dalia, with one of the modules within the program that everybody's doing is around, we do some work on visualization and creating the vision for your life. And of course, one of those, the mindset block around, but I have a lack of time, or that excuse, the lack of time that we were talking about earlier, comes up for people. But it's so helpful to kind of start thinking creatively around, or using strategies actually to make sure that the vision for your life is the priority, and that's what the filter that you look through, and the decisions that you make are in line with that.
Definitely.
Yeah, this was a big breakthrough for me when it came to researching productivity and business systems and stuff like that, where the vision is not just kind of a spiritual thing. It's actually a core part of being productive. It's very important to be clear on your vision. It's not just something for people who are going through a yoga retreat or something like that. It's really for anyone who wants to take action on goals and be more productive. So there you go. You have 3 choices when it comes to the next time there's something you want to fit into your life where you say, well, I'd like to do this, but I'm not sure if I have the time. You know, you can always procrastinate and say, I don't have the time for that. Or you can continue to sort of try to do stuff, but it'll take you a long time. Or you can really implement a strategy for this. So I encourage you to reach out for help with me, like if you have any questions about what we discussed just now. And I want to give you my productivity personality quiz, which everyone can take. This will just give you an idea about your personal way of working. So it gives you an idea about what your personality is, your approach to productivity, and some suggestions about, for you, what you can do to make a couple of changes. And there you go. Let's keep in touch. I am all over social media. So as I said before, I'm not exactly a social media purist where I delete all my accounts. I definitely have a lot of social media accounts. So you can reach me on my YouTube channel. I have a lot of travel videos and also productivity videos. I have a Facebook group, Twitter, and Instagram as well. So I would love to hear from you, whatever questions you have. Even if you're watching the replay and you didn't get to participate on the webinar, if you want to ask me anything, then I'll be really happy to give you some specific advice for you.
Brilliant. That's really good. Thank you. Really good. Resonates a lot with me.
Last questions before we sign off?
Thanks so much, Dalia. Do you know, you are the productivity queen. It's just so brilliant hearing all your tips and strategies to create that time, like we were saying, for ourselves. And I know everybody's heard me talk about working smart and not hiding behind being busy, because obviously in our program we talk about energy drains, and so from an energetic perspective, what you're saying completely rings true in terms of helping people keep their vibration high. I mean, Sophie mentioned earlier around feeling around guilt. It was guilt. What was the other feeling you were saying in terms of guilt and stress?
Yeah.
When you're not doing something, which of course then brings your vibration down low again. So
absolutely.
It's completely makes sense in terms of actually everything you can do that manages your energy, that helps you to work more productive, be less busy, will then raise your vibration as well at the same time, which is what we're all about.
I love how all of these strategies are so interrelated. You know, everything that you learn in terms of, you know, raising your energy is going to be related to raising your productivity, and it's you can really take a very holistic view of all of this.
Yeah, it's really interesting how, because I finished my job back in April to do sort of the freelancing I'm doing now, and it's so interesting how what you're saying can really, like the two situations I'm in, the one I'm in now and the one I was in, they're so different in terms of how I work, but what you're saying can relate so well to both. Like, I almost wish if I'd known what you've just told me back when I was in that super high stressful job and it was awful, you know, it would have helped so much. It's good to know that actually it works for everyone. It's something that's really relatable and for all types of work.
And that's where so many people have the same problems, you know, and we all think we're in it alone, when really we all have similar struggles.
I know you were mentioning about some of the things that can come up for people is that feeling of wanting to please people, and how that then adds busyness to the things that we do, and us then not putting the priorities in place that we need to put.
That is a huge one, and I didn't have time to go more into that right now, but maybe next time we can talk a bit more about that, because that is something people don't even realize as part of productivity. It's learning how to manage the people around you, and we make so many assumptions about what other people are thinking, which are not necessarily true, when all we would have to do most of the time is have a short conversation with them, and then things would just happen faster. And there's a quote from, I think it's Tim Ferriss, where he says, the success of your life can be measured in how many difficult conversations you're willing to have. And a lot of us just hide away from these difficult conversations, whereas if we would just go ahead and have that difficult conversation, often for one thing, the conversation is not nearly as difficult as we thought it would be. And for another thing, it just clears everything up and things keep moving forward, and we're able to get to that next step as opposed to staying stuck for years just by avoiding something.
So true.
So interesting. I love it. Really
I'm conscious of your time, Dalia, and thank you so much for spending the time with us this afternoon and sharing your tips and wisdom around how we can be more productive. And I know that everyone will get a lot from the replay as well, and I'll pop the links below so people can join your groups and get some more of your daily tips as well in the group.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Hope you're going to enjoy your extra hour today.
Yeah, thank you.
Definitely.
Oh, brilliant. All right, then take care. See you soon.
All right, take care. We'll speak soon. Bye.